It's a quick turnaround, but we're back. It's EPL Insights with data provided by Infogol for Gameweek 34 in the Premier League. Gareth Wheeler, Andrew Beasley with you. Our heads are spinning. We're going to try to keep this tight, provide you our picks, our always top-notch analysis, and we're coming off a very good midweek as well, Andrew. So I feel like we're in rhythm and we can just pick up where we left off.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just carry on. As you say, we had a pretty good midweek. I think you maybe did slightly better than me, but I think we both had quite a few successful picks. So that was very enjoyable and great to get a few on the board.
It was a great Wednesday. The start a little bit slow, the end kind of the same thing, but right in the middle, the heart of the sandwich is where the good stuff was on Wednesday, including Manchester City's 4-1 victory over Arsenal. The futures odds now on Pinnacle to go on and win the title. City at minus 1,400, Arsenal at plus 800. I think you said it. I think it was a direct quote that you couldn't really find reason for positivity around Arsenal heading into that game. You were spot on. It was 4-1. Could have been even bigger than that. A golfing class was on display at the Etihad, if we're going to be honest, Andrew. And we said this weeks ago, if you're going to back City, the time was 3 weeks ago. Of course, now it just seems way too far out. There's no chance City can stumble here coming home, can they? I mean, this was their coronation on Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yes, I think so. I mean, we thought, Manchester City would probably win, but I think it was even more one-sided than I expected. I mean, Arsenal recorded their lowest XG of the season. I know they scored a goal, but they barely laid the glove on City, really. I mean, City scored 4 goals and missed 2 big chances. Could have easily been more. The game almost sort of petered out, really, because it was done relatively early on. Yeah, I think it's done. I can't see any bumps in the road now. I mean, I'm not sure I can see Arsenal winning, all their remaining games, even if we take that as a necessary requirement. So they'd need that and City stumbling, and I just can't see it now.
If you think City will stumble, you can still get on side with Arsenal plus 800. That is there on Pinnacle as well. We might be a step closer to figuring out or deciding on what the top 4 is going to be. Newcastle were great again at Goodison Park against Everton. United, I mean, the full 3 points, you might have thought it was a fait accompli, but now, with the likes of Villa and Liverpool on good form, a 2-2 draw at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, is that good enough for Manchester United to close the book on top 4 contention?
I think so, just about. I don't think they're going to slip up from here. I mean, I thought it was quite an interesting game. It was kind of a sort of potted overview of the 2 team season, really. I mean, you had strengths and weaknesses on both on display. We saw Tottenham start slowly. United score a couple of good goals, great sort of counter-attack style goal with Rashford. But then obviously you had Tottenham coming back in the second half, as they've done quite a lot this season. And I think we spoke about it before, but United often conceding 2 or more when away against any of the top half teams. It happened once again. It still could have gone either way at the end. But I think we saw, as I say, sort of best and worst of both teams in the game. And I think United are fine for top 4. It's a fine result when you're only chasing 4th, not going for the title, that sort of level of points return. Then it's fine for them. And I guess Tottenham showed a bit of fight after obviously what happened at Newcastle last weekend. But obviously, I think we'll get to the game at Liverpool. I think it's going to be very hard for them to get anything there. But we'll obviously talk about that in a minute.
It was either Manchester United took their foot off the gas or simply ran out of gas. That was my worry heading into the game. That's why I didn't want to make a pick on who would actually go and pick up points in that match. Just coming off the FA Cup. It was their 54th game of the season. And other than Man City, I mean, they played far and away more than anyone else in the Premier League. So I think it's just caught up to them a little bit. And at the bottom of the table, are we stuck on a bottom 5 who are still in a relegation fight? Is there separation there? Because some significant plays midweek at the bottom of the table. Everton got absolutely destroyed. We just told you to Newcastle. Nottingham Forest, surprise win over Brighton, who maybe had a little bit of a hangover from their day out at Wembley on Sunday. And Leeds and Leicester City canceled each other out in a 1-1 draw, but Leicester City had 2 goals called back. The ball was in the back of the net. A great strike by Tielemans in the first half, and Vardy just a step offside from securing a match winner. What would have been a vital 3 points? Instead, they share the points there, and those two teams still in a whole lot of trouble as well. How are you looking at the bottom of the table, Andrew?
Yeah, I think it's 3 from 5, as you say. Probably Leeds United down, so then Forest, Leicester, Everton, and Southampton. I think it's fair to say that Southampton have probably gone now because they're 6 points from safety with only 5 to go. I mean, that's 2 wins just to even get level, and then they've only won 6 all season. They probably need sort of 4 wins to stay up. I think that's very unlikely. So we can probably say they've gone, and then it's probably 2 from 4 for the other 2 spots. Obviously, Leeds and Leicester, as you say, Leicester had a couple of goals ruled out, but Bamford missed an incredible chance right at the end. I mean, if Leeds go down and Leicester stay up, you can't boil a season down to a single moment. But if that is the outcome, then that's going to weigh heavy, because there was a chance there for 3 points and a chance to pull away, but it didn't happen. And again, we'll get onto it shortly, but you've got Everton, Leicester on Monday night. I mean, maybe not for the neutral, but I mean, that's probably the biggest game of the match week, I think, just in terms of what's on the line there. So, that's a fascinating game. But yeah, I think 3 from 5. I think West Ham probably will be fine. I did say I thought they might beat Liverpool. Didn't happen. But I think they've probably got enough, and everyone from there upwards should be okay. But I guess the gap isn't that big. But yeah, I think it's probably 4 from 16th to 19th, and 2 of them will go.
By the way, thanks for bringing up that Bamford miss. I was on the over in that game. I think that you were as well, Andrew. I mean, between the Bamford miss and the goals ruled out, I can't believe it ended 1-1. I feel like that was the bad beat of the week. So thank you very much, Patrick Bamford. And who could forget? Well, anyone that bear witness to Bournemouth's 1-0 victory at St. Mary's. I mean, just a dreadful game, but a big 3 points for Bournemouth, and their fans don't care how, they just care about how many. And Bournemouth have to be just about safe now. So congratulations to them. And Gary O'Neill's done a great job with Bournemouth, and we'll see if they can kick on and continue to pick up points this week. So let's dive right into our feature 5, and we'll go rapid fire for the remaining 5 this weekend. It's a little bit different because of all these midweek fixtures, Andrew. There's only 3 games on Saturday. It's a little bit of a bizarre one. So get most of your work done, your family life, what have you, on Saturday, so you can enjoy lots and lots of football on Sunday, and a critical game at the bottom of the table on Monday Night Football as well. But we'll start off with one of those matches on Saturday. It's Crystal Palace and West Ham United. The question is, do either one of these sides need more points, or how many more points, I should say, to avoid the drop? Crystal Palace finally lost under Roy Hodgson. You were wondering if that was ever going to happen. 2-0 to Wolves. They're 12th place, but they're on 37 points. But they haven't scored in back-to-back games now after scoring 5. I can't believe a Crystal Palace team scored 5. It's the power. It's old man strength from Roy Hodgson. Crystal Palace first to concede in 7 of their last 9 games. At home, decent, 5, 6, and 5 on the season, but just 14 goals scored. That's been a struggle all season long, scoring at home, and 19 conceded. West Ham, I know Andrew's going to have something to say about this. A controversial 2-1 loss to Liverpool. Was it a handball? Was it a handball by Thiago inside the area? They actually had a goal called back. Jared Bowen just couldn't stay on side as well. Decent game, fairly competitive as well, even though Liverpool quite dominant in terms of the XG battle in that game. David Moyes is saying his side just simply doesn't get respect. Not sure about that. You need to earn respect. 34 points, 15th place, not great for West Ham, but they are 5 points above the drop. They played to over the 2.5 total in 4 of 5. Both teams to score has played in 4 of 5. Away, just they're not picking up as many points as they should. 3, 3, and 9. Only 12 goals scored, 20 conceded. But in terms of expected goal differential, according to Infogol, minus 1.1 is actually the 5th best in the Premier League, so not being rewarded for their efforts. Head-to-head, Palace won the reverse fixture 2-1. Crystal Palace hasn't had a clean sheet against West Ham, and get this, their last 17 meetings. West Ham, no clean sheet against Crystal Palace in their last 11 meetings. There's goals in this fixture. They played to over the 2.5 total in 6 of 7, and both teams to score has played in each and every one of their last 10 games. So is that where you're going here? Is it based upon history? Because recent track record this season, you look at these sides, Andrew, they're not free-flowing, high-scoring sides, but the history would suggest that this fixture is one where goals in the over or both teams to score is the salient play.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, to sort of go back a step to what you said about, how many more points do they need? I mean, Palace have got 37 points. I looked it up. There's only been 4 teams in the last 20 years that have gone down with 37 or more points. So you have to think based on that Palace are probably safe. West Ham on 34. That's a little bit more common. They'll probably want another 3 points. It feels like this is a game where West Ham could get those points as well. I mean, the data says you should probably back West Ham to win. But I mentioned that again ahead of the Liverpool game in midweek. It's a play that I've used a few times this season, and whenever I do, I think they let me down. But when you look at their stats on Infogol, I mean, West Ham 34 goals from 47.2 expected. I mean, that tells the story of their season, really. That they've been better. Their performances have been better than the results would suggest, and they should have scored far more goals than they actually have. As you say, against Liverpool, might have had a penalty. I was actually surprised it wasn't given.
Yeah, me
Bowen
too.
chance, very narrowly offside, stuff like that. But no, I mean, you basically took the words out of my mouth of what you were saying. Both teams have scored in the last 11. Both teams have scored 10 goals in the last 6 games. So, all right, Palace hit a bit of a dry spot, but they're generally doing okay, creating chances and things like that. So both teams to score at -101. That was going to be my suggestion for this game.
Yeah, I'll go with the total, Andrew, over 2.25 at +105. It's a plus number, which is a pleasant surprise there. So if the game ends 1-1, which typically these fixtures have, then it's just a half loss. And I think it could actually go over that. West Ham's looked a lot better, a lot more confident in recent weeks. Even against Liverpool, like they still looked a consistent threat, even though it didn't show in the XG total as well. And perhaps back-to-back weeks, it's not back to usual under Patrick Vieira for Crystal Palace. Perhaps it's just a bump in the road. They played 2 defensive teams over the course of the last 2 weeks. Things might be a little bit more open in this one. So I'm comfortable with that lower total to make a full play on that. And let's hope that the trend continues between these two sides. So what do you make? West Ham on 34? You think that 37 is the total that you need to come about in order to be safe in the Premier League? Is that the number that you're circling, Andrew?
I mean, that was just based on sort of history, but I mean, I think that will be enough. I mean, if you look at the table, Leicester on 29, only 5 games left to go. Unless they're going to win 3 games to get to 38. I mean, possibly, but I think it's quite a big ask. So I think any team with 37 is probably safe. Bournemouth 36. I think we think they're safe. And West Ham maybe 3 more points, something like that. So, it's a sort of a cliche about the magical 40-point mark. But the reality is you get high 30s, mid to high 30s, and you're probably all right.
I heard 36 bandied about. I've seemed a little bit low to me, 37, 38. I think that's the number that you circle if you get to it. There's just the teams at the bottom. It's hard to see a path for them to pick up a lot of points here down the stretch. Also should mention Wilfried Zaha back in the Crystal Palace team. Looks like he's going to be fully fit, good to go this weekend, which is a good sign for some goals potentially being scored at Selhurst Park this weekend. Let's move on. It's Manchester United against Aston Villa from Old Trafford this weekend. A sneakily good game between a side where no one's really been better in terms of their home form, at least from a defensive perspective, in Manchester United, taking on really the informed side outside of Manchester City in Aston Villa in the Premier League. United coming off a 2-2 draw against Spurs. There's now a 6-point gap between them and Spurs and Villa, and United has 2 games in hand on both, and a 7-point gap on Liverpool with a game in hand. Even though Liverpool has a pretty easy schedule coming home, you got to win those games, but it's a decent schedule coming home for Liverpool. United simply couldn't put away the game against Spurs. Fernandes went off the bar. I mean, they had a 2.38 XG in that game. All of it had to have come really in the first half because it was a surprise they weren't up 4 or 5. Spurs ended up coming away with a 2.53 XG in that game as United faded late. Manchester United first to score in first half winner in 5 of their last 7 games. They've only lost 1 game at home all season. It was the very first one against Brighton. They have the 3rd most home points, but the only 8 goals conceded at home is by far and away the best in the Premier League. For Aston Villa, another win, 1-0 over Fulham. Fulham just a 0.1 XG in that game. Defensively sound for Aston Villa. They're undefeated in their last 10, including 8 wins. And they've been first to score in 9 of 10. They're up to 5th place, like joint 5th place with Spurs is wild. Second on the form table over the last 10 games. They beat United at Villa Park 3-1 after Unai Emery took over, but lost 4-2 to United in the EFL Cup at Old Trafford. 6-4 and 6 away from home, the 6th most away points, but minus 12 in terms of expected goal differential, according to Infogol, is the 5th worst in the Premier League. So punching above their weight at home. It's hard to bet against Aston Villa right now. It's hard to bet against Manchester United playing at home. Is it hard to make a bet on this fixture this week?
It is, yeah. I mean, Villa, we were just talking about West Ham. Villa have basically been the anti-West Ham. It must be a sort of claret and blue thing because they're 6th in the table, but they should be 11th based on expected goals on the Infogol table. I think what you find with Aston Villa, I was looking down their results, is that they've picked up results they didn't necessarily deserve according to the XG. But when they've lost, they've lost on the XG as well. So in other words, they haven't had any unlucky defeats, but they have had some lucky wins and draws. So the luck's kind of flown in their direction more often than not. As you said, I mean, they've not lost any of their last 3 league meetings with United, although they lost in the Cup. But they have had 2 extra days to prepare. They've got key men in form. Obviously, as we've said with United, they've had injuries, and 54 games is a lot with still more to come. So I quite like the look of the double chance Villa or draw at plus 112. I think Villa can get something with the form they're in. Players like Ollie Watkins can probably cause problems for United's patched up defence. And I don't think they'll necessarily win, but perhaps get a draw, as I say. So plus 112 on the double chance appeals to me.
Yeah, I'll make a play on Villa here. I'm basically not to lose. It's a little bit different than yours. I'm just going to go with straight up with the handicap at plus 0.75. So if they lose by a goal, it's a half loss. So a draw or win would come through at minus 110. Seems a good play for me. They're in form. This United side, it looks like they're going to kind of limp to the finish line here, which might be good enough. Draws for them against teams like Spurs and Villa. That was the thing. You were disappointed if you're a United supporter that they didn't come away with a win on Wednesday, but the point against Spurs isn't a bad one, playing away from home. I kind of feel the same way here with the games dwindling down for Aston Villa. The fact that United have a couple of games in hand, I think it draws a pretty good result, especially considering that Liverpool plays Spurs this week. So I can see this ending. I can see it ending in a draw. United just so difficult to beat at home. It's tough to make a play for Villa for an outright win just based upon United's form. But, Lindelof and Shaw play center back again. How does that look? The depth of the team doesn't look quite there. Outside from Rashford, just lacking that reliable goal scorer. So let's go with Villa on the handicap at plus 0.75. Makes sense to you, Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I think they probably will get something, and particularly if they score first, I think with all the games in United's legs, it might be hard for them to come back to get the win. So yeah, I think we sort of agreed that Villa will get something on Saturday, Sunday, whichever day it is. It's hard to keep track.
Let's keep this rolling. Next up, it's Fulham and Manchester City, as Fulham are coming off a disappointing 1-0 loss at Aston Villa. Their worst XG in a game this season at just 0.1. No clean sheets in 8 for Fulham. They played to over the 2.5 total in 6 of 8. They were a top 10 team at home at Craven Cottage. They've been good, and Marco Silva deserves a lot of credit for a promoted side and how well they played at home. 7-4-5, 23 goals scored, 22 conceded, although they do have the 3rd worst expected goals against, 27.9 in 16 games, according to Infogol. That is at home. Manchester City, coming off that resounding 4-1 victory over Arsenal, have put them in pole position to come away with the Premier League title. They're just 2 points behind Arsenal, but they have those 2 games in hand. Kevin De Bruyne, on the theme of 2, scored twice in that game. So did Erling Haaland, who scored way more than 2 goals this season, 33 in the Premier League, and he has an XG of 26.1. By comparison, Southampton, as a club, as a side, in all of their games, over the course of the season, have an XG of 34.1. So Hull is just 8 behind, one guy versus an entire side, which probably suggests why City are going to go on and win the title, and Southampton are right at the bottom. City haven't lost in 16 games. They played to over the 2.5 total in 8 of 9. Both teams' scorers played in 5 of 7, and they've been the first to score in 6 of 6. 9-3-3 away from home, but they have the best expected goal differential away at 16.8. The next best in the Premier League in terms of expected goal differential away from home is Brighton at 9.3. There's a significant gap there between City's form away and the rest of the Premier League. Head to head, I watched this game. I actually had a bet on Fulham in it, and it actually came good on the handicap. Man City played, and they were down a goal, and they were down a man in that game, but City roared back to win 2-1 at the Etihad. 13 straight wins for City over Fulham. No losses in 19 against Fulham, and Fulham haven't picked up a clean sheet in their last 20 against Manchester City. So I'm going to be looking at the total in this game, but for the Premier League and the title race, can Fulham do Arsenal a solid here and keep that title race alive by coming up with a result against the Giants, the behemoth of Manchester City?
I mean, I guess we'd all like to think so, just to keep it interesting for a bit longer, but I do think it's very unlikely. I mean, one surprising thing about Manchester City this season, they've only won one of their 6 away games against teams in the top half of the table. Might not expect that with how dominant they've generally been, but their only win against the top half side came at Arsenal. They drew at Newcastle and Villa. They lost at United, Tottenham, Liverpool. But I think if you sort of think about those games, I think they were all quite a long time ago now, and they've been in serious form these last couple of months, as we know. Simple fact is they've scored 3 or 4 goals in their last 4 games, and it's hard not to think that they'll do something similar with the number of chances that Fulham give up, as you pointed out. I think they've given up the most big chances this season, or they're certainly near the top end of that table and concede quite a lot at home as well. I think with Fulham, we often say on this podcast, or you often say, you and Jake, you take the over with Fulham. It normally pays out when they play a top half side. There's only been one instance where it hasn't. So, well, that's over 2.5 at least. Couple of things I like the look of: City to win and over 2.5 goals. That's minus 125. Or just City over 2.5 goals. For them to score 3 or more, that's plus 110. As we just said, they've scored 3 or more in the last 4 league games, and against a defence like Fulham, you'd have to think they'll probably do that again.
Sure. There was a stretch of the season where City kind of grinded out some away results, at least in terms of the score. I think the way the games played out were comfortable. It was like 1-0, 1-0. But right now, everyone's healthy, especially their attacking players. They can rotate. Haaland comes off, Alvarez comes in. Like Bernardo comes out, Mahrez comes in. Phil Foden is back and fit. Like, there's competition in the side, and they're rounding out. Their form is rounded out not just for the Premier League, but they want to go in and win a Champions League as well. So I think the motivation and the depth is there to keep the goals coming in this side. And Fulham can score as well. Like, City still conceded that late goal to Rob Holding. They haven't really had an effect on the score, but they have conceded on a regular basis, kind of like Newcastle, controlling games, but conceding maybe that cheap goal late that brings the both teams to score and play and pushes up the total a little bit. I'm fine with just playing the total in this one, to be honest with you. The goal total of 3 at minus 117, and let's take the over here. I love my Fulham over bets. City, they've been an overside as of late, especially the history. I mean, Fulham no clean sheets against City in 20. They played to over the 2.5 total in 4 of 5 as well. So let's go with over 3 at minus 117. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this game. It's Liverpool and Spurs from Anfield. Liverpool, they're rolling now. A 2-1 win over West Ham on the weekend, although there was that Thiago handball incident, the penalty that wasn't given. But the 2.56 XG on the game, I think it reflects well on how well Liverpool have been playing, at least in terms of their attacking football. And they won away from home, go figure. And they won away after going down a goal in that game. 3 straight wins overall for Liverpool, and they're undefeated in 5. No clean sheets in 4. They played to over the 2.5 total of 5 of 6. Both teams to score has played in 5 of 6 of their games as well. Just 1 loss at home all season long for Liverpool, and they have the 3rd best expected goal differential at home at 21.6, according to Infogol. Spurs, they salvaged a 2-2 draw against Manchester United. They haven't won in 3, no clean sheet in 7. Over 2.5 is played in 6 of 7, and both teams to score has come through in 7 of 7 games. They are 5-5-6 away from home, 25 goals scored, 31 against. That is the 5th most goals conceded away from home on the season. Ryan Mason trying to build off what was a much better second half performance last time out. Spurs did lose 2-1 to Liverpool earlier this season. It was a Mo Salah brace, a Harry Kane consolation goal for Spurs. Liverpool haven't lost to Spurs. This surprises me, Andrew. They haven't lost to Spurs in their last 11 games. Although Liverpool haven't come away with a clean sheet in 5. The thing is, Spurs haven't had a clean sheet against Liverpool in 16. They played to over the 2.5 total in 4 of 5, and both teams to score is played in 5 of 5. Does Fortress Anfield do the trick again this weekend? Because Liverpool continue to be so good, a cut above playing at home. What do you make of this fixture? And did Spurs show you anything on Thursday to show you that they have any life heading into this fixture?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think it says everything about both these teams. We were just talking about Fulham and Man City and the chances City have and the chances Fulham give up. And the goal line for that was set at 3. Well, it's at 3.25 for this game, over 3.25, currently minus 100. I mean, because you've got 2 teams here with pretty good attacks, particularly in Liverpool's case, in generating chances, but who are quite weak defensively. So it's hard not to see there being lots of goals in this one. As you say, I mean, Tottenham haven't beaten Liverpool for quite some time, but I mean, they had the better chances in the reverse fixture. Liverpool did win 2-1, but Tottenham had 4 big chances to Liverpool's 2 that day. So not unrealistic. They possibly could have won that one, and they provided a very stiff test for Liverpool. Roughly this time last year, it ended 1-1 at Anfield, and Tottenham possibly should have won that one as well. Obviously, both teams have fallen away a little bit since then, but with Liverpool being at home, I mean, you'd have to fancy them, really. I mean, Spurs' away form for the season as a whole hasn't been too bad, but they haven't won any of their last 5, and that's a run that includes a draw at Southampton, heavy losses at Leicester, and obviously Newcastle last weekend. So it's very hard to make a case for Tottenham on the road with the form that they've been showing. I mean, you've mentioned that obviously how many goals and things there've been in the games between them. It's usually quite an entertaining fixture. I mean, both teams to score is minus 153. I mean, I think that's probably a bit small to get on, but both teams to score, Liverpool to win plus 200. Yeah, I think I could probably get on board with that. I think Liverpool should win with their home dominance, but you can never rely on them to keep a clean sheet. Even at home, they usually give up a few chances. We saw last week Nottingham Forest, 5 away goals all season, and then 2 in about 10 minutes at Anfield. So there's always a chance for opposition teams, but I think it has to be Liverpool to win in some capacity because of their home form and Tottenham struggles away from home.
Yeah, I don't disagree. With how good Liverpool have been at home, they can overrun teams. They might just suck the life completely out of the Spurs side and run away with this one. I like a couple plays here. Let's just keep it to the Liverpool goal total of over 2.5 goals at plus 143. I mean, I just look at this Spurs team defensively, backup goalkeeper and Forster. The back 3 was all over the shop again. If this team could concede 5 at St. James's Park, how many will it concede at Anfield here? So over 2.5 at plus 142. It's been a fixture full of goals and a fixture full of chances. And I just, this Liverpool attack with the big guns back in this team, with Jota, Diaz back in the mix, I can see Liverpool scoring goals, and that's the only thing that I'm really sure of here. So let's stick with the over the goal total. Is that too much, 2.5 for you to consider making a play, Andrew?
I don't think so with how Tottenham have been defending. I mean, 3 at Southampton, 4 conceded at Leicester, 6 at Newcastle. as you say, Liverpool's front line, back in form, back fit. I mean, probably the first time this season that they've all been fit and available. Obviously, there's a lot of talk of Darwin Núñez and how he's done this season. I think he's generally done okay, but I mean, he can't even get in the side at the moment with the options that the Klopp has available. Obviously, Jota scored 4 goals in 2 games. Gakpo got one the other night. You can never rule out Salah, obviously. And then there's the set piece factor as well. Liverpool have been doing well with them. So, yeah, a lot of options. I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool scored 3. Certainly.
Yeah, I was tempted to play the over. There's a lot of overs I like this week, but at 3.25, maybe just a little bit too high in terms of where the goal line stands. So I'll just stick with Liverpool. I could see it being a 3-0. We'll see. And Liverpool in this game, I mean, there's European football at stake here, not only keeping a potential late push for the Champions League alive, but certainly the Europa League. And if Liverpool do beat Spurs, which I think they will this weekend, they'll leapfrog over Spurs in the table with a game in hand. Anything else on this one, Andrew?
No, I think we're in agreement. It should be a fairly routine day for Liverpool. I say not certain they'll keep a clean sheet, but I think they can score a few and get the win.
I mean, I just want to defer to the Liverpool expert here and tap into your great wealth of knowledge. And I think we're both on similar pages when it comes to this game. Let's go to the final match of our feature 5. It's Arsenal and Chelsea. Now, before the season, you're thinking, oh, what a late season fixture. Now you're thinking, oh, dog's breakfast a little bit, because Arsenal's coming off the 4-1 loss to Manchester City. They look deflated. They look down and out. Just a 0.62 XG in that game. Went away with a whimper, and no wins in their last 4 for a team once considered a title contender. No clean sheet in 7 for Arsenal. That's been a big problem with no Saliba, no Partey. They played to over the 2.5 goal total in 6 of 6. Both teams have scored in games that they played in 7 of 7. Arsenal do have the second most points at home, 45 points at home in total, but they're 13th in home goals conceded at 21. They started the season like a team that you couldn't score against when you're playing at the Emirates, and that certainly isn't the case any longer. Cue Chelsea to come into the fray because they simply can't score anywhere. Coming off a 2-0 loss to Brentford, Frank Lampard, newsflash, not the solution, not the answer for Chelsea Football Club. They're winless in 5 in all competitions. No wins in their last 8 overall. No clean sheet in their last 5 games, and they played to under 2.5 in 6 of 7. I'm not sure about the formations he's playing, who he's playing, and where. It's been a little bit of a mystery. 4, and 7 for Chelsea away from home. Just 13 away goals scored all season long, and their expected goal differential is a minus 1.8 away from home. Head-to-head, Arsenal won the reverse fixture 1-0. Chelsea only had a 0.3 XG in that game. 3 straight wins for Arsenal over Chelsea, and Chelsea no clean sheets in their last 3, which is no surprise based upon that statistic. All right, so is this the fixture that gets Arsenal back on track? It's hard to back Chelsea here based upon the regression in play, the negative football, and the reluctance to play attacking players in this Chelsea side. It's just one of those, just not knowing what to expect, other than expecting the worst when it comes to Chelsea, makes it very difficult to back them in this fixture.
Yeah, absolutely. You sort of feel like there's an interesting psychology almost to this match, because the likelihood is that when this game kicks off, Arsenal will have gone down to second in the table, because we all expect Manchester City to beat Fulham. So it's kind of, how do they respond to that? It's going to start to feel like the title's got away from them if it hasn't already. And do they then really have anything to play for? But I mean, all that said, as you say, you still can't really put any faith in Chelsea. I mean, 1 win against the top half side, that was 2-0 at Aston Villa. And even then they lost on the XG. They probably shouldn't have won the game on the balance of play. They're second bottom in the 6-game form table with only 3 goals. I mean, I was looking at their last 6 games in all competitions. They scored against Brighton. Even though they lost, they did score a goal. But there are other games in the last 6. I mean, Brentford, 1.3 XG, didn't score. Real Madrid, 1.9. Madrid again, 1.1. Wolves, 1.0. Liverpool, 2.5. They've sort of been generating around about a goal a game, and they're just not converting their chances. But even if they score at Arsenal, which is possible. As you say, Arsenal don't keep many clean sheets at home. I still feel that Arsenal, will have too much for them. They may have to accept that the title is gone, but they're still going to want to put on a show in front of their fans. And I did see that Lampard was in charge of Chelsea when they won at Arsenal in 2019, but obviously that's a long time ago now. A lot of things have changed then. It might be the same two managers in the dugouts, but obviously they've sort of gone in different directions since back then, when Chelsea was certainly the stronger of the two at that time. You said a minute ago, lots of games you would expect the overs. I think this is another one. Minus 118 for over 2.5. I think that's probably gonna come in. Arsenal minus 0.75. I believe it's minus 120 on the handicap, something like that. I think Arsenal should win relatively easily, but you can't count on them for a clean sheet at home, even against Chelsea, who rarely score against anybody. I think this could be a game where they do get one, perhaps.
Yeah, I just can't wrap my head around Chelsea in the over. I just can't. Despite the frailties at the back right now for Arsenal and how they've been conceding, I can't go there, but I can back an Arsenal victory on the handicap at minus 0.75 at minus 120. I know you're not getting a lot of juice, but how can you back Chelsea in this game? It's either that or no play for me at all. But I think this Arsenal team can win by a goal or two. 2-0. I mean, if Chelsea can lose to Brentford 2-0 at home, and lose at Wolves 1-0, and just it's been dreadful. Like, he's not even playing attacking players in the side. My only hesitancy, and you might be right with the over, if he decides to just say, well, forget about this super safe defensive approach where I'm not playing into the attacking players we spent $300 million on in the January window. Like, you got to play some of these players, right? Like, show some bravery. You're mid-table. You're stuck there. You just wonder who else might jump over in the table. Does Crystal Palace jump over them in the table? Do Wolves? Like, how low do they go here? It's just, if I'm a Chelsea supporter, you're spinning your tires right now. You've gone from a really good manager to a good manager to now this. It's just, there's no rhyme or reason. So give me Arsenal at minus 0.75 at minus 120.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny what you say there. I mean, it caught my eye. I mean, I don't think West Ham will finish above them, but they're only 5 points behind. I mean, it's not inconceivable Chelsea could finish the season as the worst team of the London teams, which nobody would have predicted at the start of the season. I think there's obviously been a few things this season that people wouldn't have predicted at the beginning, but Chelsea being quite this poor has I think taken everybody by surprise, really. I mean, it seems so long ago they had Thomas Tuchel in charge, and right, they didn't start the season that strongly, but you wouldn't have thought it would go the way that it has. So it's been a sort of remarkable season for them. I mean, yeah, they probably finished below Palace the way things are going, and West Ham won't be far behind. And it's hard to know where they turn. Obviously, Pochettino rumored to be taking over, but I think he can work well with the sort of young squad of some of these players they've brought in. But there's just so much to sort out there. It's hard to know what they'll do sort of in the next 12 months or so.
You can have good players, but you can not be a good team. And that's what it is. You need a proper preseason. Things need to be settled, straightened out. It's kind of like Manchester United at the end of last season. It was a nightmare under Wreck-It Ralph, and they come back a completely different side this season. By the way, if you're a Chelsea supporter, you have an extra day to look forward to this one. Yikes. It's a Tuesday fixture from the Emirates. Let's move on to rapid fire. Brighton and Wolves. Brighton coming off a shock loss at Nottingham Forest. Maybe not shocking that they lost at Nottingham Forest. It's a difficult place to go, but how in conceding 3 goals in the process. And Wolves all of a sudden have won 3 of their last 4 games. What do you make of this game from the Amex?
Yeah, it was surprising they lost at Nottingham Forest, but I guess there is, as we say with hindsight, they would have given a lot in that FA Cup semi-final against United. I think Wolves have improved a lot this season, but what a lot of that has come at home. They've struggled on the road. They've only got 1 clean sheet in their last 6 matches away from home. Brighton have won the last 2 meetings and they scored 3 goals both times. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was something similar here. Over 2.5 goals, or combine that with a Brighton win, something like that. But you always have to be a little bit wary with Brighton. People will know that they often, dominate games at home and don't always get the win. But with Wolves' form on the road, you'd have to think that Brighton will be okay here.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm actually going to, and this is almost sacrilegious, playing a Wolves game in the over because Brighton have scored 3. You're right, in their last 2 games against Wolves. And overall in this fixture, they've gone over 4 in their last 5 games. So give me over 2.75 at even money. It's worth the punt for me. Brighton playing at home, score goals. I think that Wolves are a little bit more comfortable right now in terms of where they are in the table. So I think you can see some goals in this game. Brentford and Nottingham Forest, both teams were struggling coming into their games midweek. Both came away with a victory. So which side continues that positive trend?
I would think Brentford at home, mentioned earlier, Nottingham Forest really struggled to score goals away from home, but I think they do have a chance possibly getting one here. Both teams to score was paid out in Brentford's last 5 at home and 3 of Forest's last 4 away. So they may not have scored many away from home, but they have come recently. So I think both teams to score at -103 might be worth a look in this one. But I think it's a tough one to call. I'm not sort of so wedded to that. I think it might be a no play, but if I was to pick something, it would probably be that.
Brentford's been a great home side to back on the season. The last couple times out hasn't worked out for them, but here, minus 0.75 at -122 for a home win over against the Nottingham Forest side, who is exceptionally poor away from home. I think there's some value there, even though you might not see that juice behind that number. But I think Brentford can roll away here with a comfortable win. Nottingham Forest, impressive win, not taking anything away from them, a home win against Brighton, but they're a completely different side playing at home than they are away. And Brentford hasn't lost in their last 3 to Nottingham Forest overall as well. So backing Brentford to get back on track with a decisive home victory. Bournemouth and Leeds United. Oh, this is such a big game at the bottom of the table. Bournemouth just about safe. Leeds United, anything but. What do you make of this fixture? Are you backing a side in this one?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at the expected goal data, then it suggests that backing Leeds is a value play for this one. And Bournemouth have been better away from home than they have been in front of their own fans. But all that said, I'm not sure I could get on Leeds, even if the numbers are telling me to, with the way they've been playing recently. And the thing with Bournemouth as well, they seem to let me down. Whenever I think there's going to be over the goals, there isn't, and sort of vice versa. They're quite a hard team to predict. They deserve a lot of credit for how well they've done this season, because I don't think anyone thought they would stay up, and they're almost certainly going to now, I think. But yeah, it's a really tough one to call this. I don't think I'd be putting a play on this. My heart sort of says Bournemouth will probably win, but they were 3-1 up in the reverse fixture before Leeds came back to win 4-3. So I think I think probably Bournemouth, but I'm not sort of strong enough on it to put my money where my mouth is.
Whenever I see Leeds now, it's like it's an overplay. So over 2.75 at +103, a plus number here. I know that it's a shade higher than 2.5, but Leeds hasn't had a clean sheet in 10. They played to over the 2.5 total in 7 of 8. The only time they didn't was midweek against Leicester City. And we've already kind of documented how shocking it was that it actually stayed in under. And both teams have scored, has played in 8 of 8 for Leeds. And head to head, both teams to score has played in 4 of 5 and over the 2.5 total in 4 and 5 between Bournemouth and Leeds. So look, Bournemouth just needs a point. A win certainly would see them secure safety. They're on 36 points. I think they do it this weekend. And I do think that they do it in a game that features lots of goals. I prefer the over to the result. I don't mind. I wouldn't discourage a Bournemouth win at +160 because I think Leeds are that bad. So either or, but let's stick with the total because I'm more confident in that. Newcastle and Southampton, a tale of two sides, isn't it? Newcastle, 7 wins in their last 8. Southampton, no wins in 8 and no clean sheets in 7. It's going to be a very difficult trip north for Southampton, but is there a play to make in this game?
Another one where it's a little bit difficult to call. I'm obviously confident that Newcastle will win. No real issue there. They won 4-1 at Southampton earlier in the season. But when you look at their home games against the teams in the bottom half of the table, there's not usually very many goals. They've played under 2.5 against all of the bottom 7. It's only paid out over 2.5 once against the bottom 11. But I sort of feel with the form Newcastle are in, they should win by more than that. But they haven't been doing that in this sort of fixture. I think, Southampton have a terrible record there. They did get a draw a couple of years ago with a 96-minute penalty, but otherwise their other 5 of the last 6 they've lost. And all of those games featured at least 3 goals and an average of 3.7. So I was thinking maybe Newcastle to win and over 2.5 goals, but it's just their record in these games against the struggling sides. They actually don't do as well. So not quite sure where to land on that one, but I think Newcastle and over 2.5.
I agree. They played in the EFL Cup. This might be Southampton's last stand. I didn't play Newcastle at Goodison Park. I kicked myself after. I might be kicking myself again here. I'm tempted to play another over, but I'm just going to go with no play at all. The spread is a goal and a half in this game. I don't even know what side I want to back, to be honest with you. I think that Newcastle wins this, but do they go away running? Is this the last stand for Southampton? We'll see how it plays out, but I'm not going to touch this one. And finally, it's Monday Night Football, and another big one at the bottom of the table, Leicester City and Everton. You win, you're out of the relegation zone. You lose, you're right in the middle of it. So where do you go for this one? Everton, not on very good form whatsoever. Leicester City have shown some signs from time to time, but really nothing that resembles any type of consistency. So where do you go here?
Yeah, I think you have to probably back Leicester of the two. I mean, we've spoken before, Everton, very few away wins. I think it's 3 since the start of last season. Some of their performances have been a little bit better than that. You look at the numbers, they probably deserve to win at Forest. They were worth their point at Palace last time out on the road. Decent performance at Chelsea, although the XG was in Chelsea's favour. But as we've said, it usually is, and it doesn't really mean anything. But obviously they took a battering last night as we record this by Newcastle, and it's going to be hard for them to get any confidence back from that. And it's just hard to see Everton scoring. I mean, they scored from a set piece last night, but they don't score many. I sort of tweeted about it, partially in jest as a Liverpool fan, of course. But when Anthony Gordon came on for Newcastle, I mean, he's still Everton's 3rd top scorer in the league this season. And he's coming off the bench against them, having left in January. And he only got 3 goals. I mean, that says everything for their problems. Where are the goals going to come from? I mean, the XG suggests this is the most likely draw of this game week. And it could be that, in trying to sort of nullify Leicester, you just end up in a bit of a stalemate. If Sean Dyche pulls his sort of tactical master plan, then that could be the outcome. But it's one where I'm really not sure where to go again. I do think Leicester will probably have enough. But I also quite like both teams to score no's, plus 104. Because neither team's been in great form in front of goal. A 0-0 wouldn't surprise me. So that might be the play. But I think it's quite hard to call. I think it's a must-watch game. I think it's fascinating to see what happens. But I'm not sure it's going to be high in quality, and I'm not sure it's going to be high in goals.
See, I'm going to go the exact opposite. I'm going to go both teams to score at minus 121 because Leicester City just simply concede poor goals, really silly goals. I think Everton, you ask how Everton scores in this game, set pieces against Everson and this shaky back line at times that doesn't look convincing. Leeds should have had more than just the goal that they scored against them midweek. I think that's where Everton are most effective. It's going to be, a Dychean type performance. They're going to have to dig in and play. But based upon the way that Leicester City attacks, and the amateur defending that we saw against Newcastle at times I just don't think that Everton can keep the ball in the back of the net either. So I think you're right. It could end 1-1, but I see both teams scoring in this game. And I quite like the both teams to score a play at minus 121. The juice is on the no side, but the mistakes that both these teams make from a defensive perspective, it's worth the punt for me. Minus 121, both teams to score. Have I convinced you to come to the dark side or the goal side? It would make the game much more watchable on Monday night. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's that thing of which is going to take precedent. Is it the slightly poor attacks or the very poor defenses? Which is going to dominate, I guess. I certainly wouldn't rule out both teams scoring for that reason. But I think I'm anticipating it being quite tight, quite tense. Maybe just 1 goal in it, something like that. But as I say, I'm not going to miss the game. I think it's going to be very interesting. But tough one to call.
All right. So that's the board this week. 10 more games to be played. Only 3 on Saturday. A big schedule on Sunday. Monday Night Football and a Tuesday night fixture as well. Anything to add on that, Andrew? Are we done and dusted and off to watch football this weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. It just sort of feels strange that the weekend games are over 4 days when we've just had a midweek with 3 days. It's sort of just sort of coming through constantly games every day at the moment, which is obviously great for everyone, really. But it makes it hard to sort of preview everything and know what's going to happen because all these quick, tight turnarounds and stuff like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were some surprise results this weekend or over into Tuesday, as we say. But yeah, I think, as I said at the start, I think Leicester-Everton is arguably the game of the week. You know, maybe not for the neutral, but so much riding on that, more than probably any other game. So it's a huge one on Monday night.
Yeah, we appreciate you sticking with us in terms of EPL Insights and the Pinnacle podcast team. We love doing this. It's been a quick turnaround, but we're happy to break it all down for you whenever we can. I think it's a weekend of goals, Andrew. Lots of goals. I have lots of overplays, and let's hope that we're seeing the ball end up in the back of the net so we all have a very happy and profitable weekend. You can follow him at Base Tuned to Red, myself at Gareth Wheeler. The odds are accurate at the time of recording. And as always, please gamble responsibly. We'll do it all again next week, Andrew. Thank you so much. Shout out to Jake, enjoying fatherhood as well. And thank to you, the listener, the viewer, for tuning in. I am Gareth Wheeler. This has been EPL Insights for Game Week 34 with data provided by Infogol.